Okay, so first I wanted to thank Iwate-Aomori JALT for having me here, and to thank Rachel for setting all of this up and stuff like that. And I'm going to go through a lot of information really quickly to make sure you have time in the breakout rooms. My slides, I'm going to put a link. They're from Google Slides, so I'll put a link afterwards. So today I'm going to start with an explanation of Corpora. Then I'm going to go over how I created these worksheets, some potential problems. And then you're going to try this yourself in the breakout rooms for about 10 minutes. And then I'll show you the answers. And once again, you'll have access to all the materials. They're on links, etc. Okay, so first, the question you might have is, what are corpora? So this definition is, corpus is a large principled collection of naturally occurring examples of language stored electronically. Well, that's what it's become since they become digital. Natural, it depends on what you're talking about. For conversation, it's still a bit lacking, as most spoken corpora come from news and maybe from opensubtitles.org. Okay, so, but it's possible to create a corpus of anything. There's even a coronavirus corpus. You could create a Harry Potter corpus. So if you're going to talk about like something from ESP, you can make your own list of words with example sentences, right? But they're updated continuously every day. There's a now corpus, and they're very easily searchable. Okay, next, how can you use them? Well, you can help them better understand how to correctly use language, like if they're making miscollocations, like touching culture instead of experiencing culture. You can show them which is correct. You can check for connotations. So is this word usually used with positive words? Is it used with negative words? You can check for grammatical patterns. You can see when and where a word is used. So I teach academic writing. So if their word's not academic enough, it could be like, hey, this is not academic. You can also use it to infer meaning of a new word from concordance lines. Concordance lines are just like sentences. So it'll show them a whole bunch of sentences. Okay, and also, as I mentioned before, you can create specific word lists for ESP. Or if you're doing a particular essay, like in my university, we have to do an essay on global warming. So I could create a global warming corpus if I want. So today I'm just going to talk about two well-known corpora, which you're going to work through in your breakout rooms. The first one is CocaCorpus. It's part of EnglishCorpora.org. This is the American corpus because I'm American. Okay, and it's also a bit more developed than the BNC, I would say. And we're also going to look over Sketch Engine for language learning. So CocaCorpus, the site is run by Mark Davies. He's pretty responsive if you want to ask him about things. And as I mentioned before, it focuses on American English, contains more than 1 billion words, and it adds new words every year. So he updates it every year. It's got spoken, which is mostly news. There are some reality TV shows. I saw Big Survivor or something. I didn't see The Real World, which I suggested he added for more conversational things. There's fiction for many books, magazines, newspapers, pretty much wherever he can pull it from. Things that it can do is you can see a list. So for example, if you have a question of what word comes after end up, or what's the grammatical construction? So you can see end up being. So the grammatical construction is the verb will be with an ing afterwards, right? So you can do it for that. You can also show the keywords in context, so it colorizes everything, the parts of speech. So you can see that usually after end up, you'll have an article, or you can have a gerund. Okay. You can also use it to show collocates. These are the collocates. For example, if I wanted to know what word is used with the adjective thick, so thick adjective plus noun, I can get thick hair, skin, layers, smoke, clouds. And you can see the frequency bar, like the highest frequency is the most common usage. So the bigger the bar, the more common it is. All right. You can also use it to show parts of speech or collocates. So there's also a browse function too. So for example, if I wanted to know what words are usually used with naturally, I can see the adjective, verb, and adverbs that are usually connected. There's also a clusters button. On the clusters button, you can see like multi-word units. You can see topics, and you can also see it in text. And it doesn't have it here, but there's also a way to connect back to a lingui, which is kind of like a Japanese version of the most common kanji, and reverso, which also has Japanese sentences, although reverso sentences are not always great. I think Tatoeba corpus is good. You can also analyze a text. So if someone wants to know if their writing is academic enough, you can see the frequency over 3,000 words are more frequent. Low frequency means they're more common. Academic words are usually in the higher frequency band, lower frequency band. You can also do it to analyze text if you want to see if your text is appropriate for your learner's level or not. So higher frequency words are easier. So you can see of, za, there are pretty basic, but low frequency, you can see post hoc. So maybe your beginners aren't going to use post hoc. You can also use it to compare words, once again, for grammatical patterns. So if you want to ask someone, is it when she arrived or while she arrived? You can see it would be when she arrived, because the past tense is used with when, but while, all the grammar points are in the ing form. So you would say she was arriving would be fine, but not when. Okay, you can also look at frames. So if you want to know what goes in between as. Once again, you can look at if something is academic or not. You can see when it's used or not. The smaller the bar, the less it's used in that category. So you can see a lot of is not used very often. You could also see that a lot is used pretty stable throughout time. Okay. The next thing I'm going to talk about is Sketch Engine for language learning, and this is based off of Adam Kilgraff's research, who was behind the BNC. Unfortunately, he's not alive anymore. The sentences are sorted for text quality, so it's easier to see the concordance lines here. And this is better for more frequency words. Higher frequency. If you use very low frequency words like glossolalia or something like that, it's not going to come up with like a word sketch and all that nice stuff. You'll just get concordance lines. But to give you a comparison of the concordance lines, you have scale at the top, much easier to read, the text is highlighted. And at the bottom, you have the CocaCorpus, which is a bit messier, but it can give you more context if you click on. You can see the whole paragraph it came from, typically. All right. Word sketch, you can also see collocates. So like if I look at the word hope for nouns, I can see what verbs go with it. I can see what adjectives, what modifiers. And if you click on the buttons individually, you'll also get new concordance lines. So you can see hope plus express, so express hope, and it'll give you a new sentence. Okay. Also, you can look at this kind of word cloud, and this will show you what words are associated with it. Also show you some synonyms, so if they're doing some paraphrasing. This works only for the high frequency words. So the low frequency words, a lot more academic words, these does not show up. And the Coca works better for that. Okay, so next I'm going to talk about how I made the worksheet. So in the past 3 years, we do the same assignment, and every year the same mistakes were made. So I chose the most common errors. I saw miscollocations are more often done, and then I made a worksheet based on that. Okay, so I targeted the errors with, if you want to target collocation errors, you can do like what adjective goes with what noun. So strong coffee, powerful coffee, etc. Scale is a bit easier because I just have to type in coffee. Coca, you have to fill in the form a bit more. Okay, I also use screenshots, and the reason I use screenshots to do this is because it takes a certain amount of intuition to be able to do these searches independently, which people might have or might not have by themselves. So having pictures makes it easier. Also, you need to do the searches beforehand because things can change. So some potential problems with CocaCorpus, if too many people are logged on at the same time, and if too many people are using the IP, like if they're using the internet in the classroom and they don't have their account, they'll get kicked out. They won't be able to do a search. It's free. But they slow down the access, so it could take a bit more scale. There's just not enough information about the lower frequency words. Overall, it does require a certain level of English and basic computer skills, and it can be labor intensive if you're taking the photos yourself. I haven't found a really good textbook for this yet, so I've just been doing it myself. And messages like this pop up on the CocaCorpus. As you can see, the rates are pretty cheap, but if your students don't want to pay, they're going to see this message after a search, and it'll come up again and again. And students usually freak out because they don't know what this is. Okay, so that was a lot of information very fast, but to keep on time, I'm going to put you in breakout rooms, and you'll be in breakout rooms for 10 minutes, and I'm going to give you a link to the doc. Be careful with the CocaCorpus. After 10 to 15 minutes, 10 to 15 searches, you'll only be doing 3. It'll tell you to make a new account. So I'm going to put the document in the chat, and it starts on the 4th page. The pages before that are just a bit of an overview. So just make sure you follow everything exactly as the photo, or it's not going to work. Okay, so everyone should be able to see the link. This is my Google Doc link to the slides. As I said, it starts on the 4th page. Okay, and I'm going to put you all in the breakout groups for 10 minutes.
Hello.
Hello.
Hey guys, you're gonna.
Hi there.
Hi Robert. So
Hi Rachel.
I'm actually gonna leave you guys because I have to actually monitor people as they come in.
All right.
Yeah,
Okay.
because I'm not a host anymore. I automatically got sent to a.
Okay. You lost your privileges. Okay, I see. Right.
But anyways, you guys enjoy yourselves. Hopefully, I'll be able to pop in and out.
Come on back anytime.
But,
Okay. Sure. Okay then.
yeah.
Right. Okay.
English majors.
All right.
And it's like, hi Rachel, welcome back. It's like, what did I join is what I'm thinking today. My students are never going to use a Corpora, and for me, it's all here. It's enough for what I'm doing. So how do I apply anything that she's talking about?
Yeah. I mean, I suppose that there are okay. So there are some words I think I sometimes have like sometimes students use the word challenge, and they say let's challenge, and they think the word challenge is used in a particular way. But then maybe like a corpora or something where you can put it in and say, look, this is how the word comes out. This is how it's used. We need to find a word that is used in a different way. So like, I want to try this rather than I want to challenge this. Like
my writing class is first year students, and
right.
the school teachers room has a really thick thesaurus, and I drag it into the classroom every day. And you know, this is my baby thesaurus that I have at home. But I'm really trying to encourage my students, try to find a bigger word. My biggest challenge with them is very nandoka. You know, let's expand to another vocab. They won't pick up this thesaurus even to open it. So I try.
So say the huge benefit of using Corpora, or at least teaching students how to use it, is because you know, vocabulary learning is one of the best things you can do to learn a language, right? If you know vocabulary, that improves your reading, that improves your writing, that improves your listening and your speaking, and it improves all 4 skills. And it also ultimately also improves your grammar usage and everything. So Corpora is really awesome, in my opinion, because it teaches you a lot more about vocabulary than what the textbooks teach you. The textbooks teach you, you know, at the very most, the meaning of the word and maybe the parts of speech. But there's so much more to vocabulary than that. And if students, you know, could learn, and obviously Corpora probably shouldn't be used with like super low level students. I think it should honestly start being used at the very earliest, you know, first year university, when you have students who are starting to take English a little bit more seriously, right? Don't think there would be a purpose for it for high schoolers, because most of them are just, you know, it's compulsory English for them, and most of them just want to finish high school. But at the university level, many of them who are taking English are hoping to use it for something, right? So at least exposing students to how to use Corpora. So for self-study, especially for self-study purposes, that's really what it's for. It's mostly just exposing students to the tools that they have access to increase their vocabulary learning. I learned a lot about Corpora, and the reason why I'm like advocating is that I actually learned a lot about it in my master's program, and I was very impressed with it. I was impressed with like how many ways it can actually serve our students, particularly the more serious ones who want to really deepen their vocabulary knowledge, because it's more than just meaning and parts of speech, right? It's
Okay.
more than
What are you actually introducing your students to that they're actually using? Give me an example.
What do you mean that they're actually using? It's just,
well, you can
just deepening the vocabulary knowledge, right? And if you know collocates, right? If you know what words are most commonly like jumped together, right? That's gonna help your writing. That's gonna help your reading, right? That's gonna help you read faster instead of reading every single word. You know, you and I, we read so quickly, and it's because we don't read every single word, right? We know we know that with this word, oh, it's likely this word that's going to come back next. We know all of this stuff internally, and you in a corpus kind of, but our students don't know that, right? They don't know any of that internally, and so a corpus kind of exposes students to what to expect, especially with collocates, especially.
Well, I think it's good because it has, you know, examples of use, right? So I think that seeing it in the wild, as it were, as opposed to like just in the textbook,
really
is helpful
about it too, because oftentimes textbooks are, you know, it's not real English most of the time, right?
Yeah, sure.
It's catered English to, it's made
Exactly. Yeah.
for the textbook for that level, but the corpus uses real language from real literature, right? And articles.
I also think that maybe, as you were saying, Alan, you said that, you know, the students don't want to pick up this big thesaurus, but I mean, I guess if they're online, I mean, it's the resource is right there and they can use it. Then maybe they'd be a little bit more willing to type it in and say, okay, let's see how that word works. And, you know, let's see, like, you know, instead of like saying very this, very that, like, okay, let's do really, like, extremely, and see how those words work, and what, you know, maybe with the context. So as Rachel was saying about collocations as well, where you can actually see, oh, look, these words go together well, and you know, getting the students maybe to practice doing something like that, perhaps.
I think it's also great. I totally forgot about the vocabulary, right? The low frequency and the high frequency.
Right.
Like students at university level should be studying vocabulary lists, right? And so I know my students right now, like they're trying really hard to level up the vocabulary. to incorporate into their papers. I do teach academic writing, so it's kind of a requirement. But I was reminded when she showed it, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. You can like paste your paper in there and see how many high frequency words or low frequency.
Okay.
And I thought I totally forgot about that, but I'm like, yeah, my students can do that now because they're struggling. They don't know what words are academic and what words aren't academic. And and quite frankly, as a new writing teacher specifically, I was a Kiowa teacher for a really long time. Like, I don't even know what is considered super academic and what's considered, not as like that mid frequency. I don't know how frequent these words come up. So it's even beneficial for teachers, I think, too.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that was just my thoughts on it. I was really excited about this presentation because I learned about this program 2 years ago, but I've never had the chance to actually apply it to my classroom yet because this is the first time this year that I've actually taught a level that it would suit, right?
And this program being SKELL, is that right? SKELL.
So I think she presented on 2 different ones.
I'm looking at Coca and SKELL, but are they're completely separate corpora?
Yeah, they're completely separate. It's just one's better for certain things and one's better for the other things.
Yeah, I was gonna say I've heard of SKELL before now.
No, I haven't heard of that. I tried to use a couple before. There's one that's by
we're gonna end up going back soon anyway.
We'll go back soon. Okay. Right. Okay. I mean, I did use I think the Birmingham one before. Like, I did my master's with at Birmingham, and I was trying to use that, but that is not fun to use at all. And that kind of put me off Corpora actually, because I just because it looks, the interface is really old, and you have to type it in and in a way that just looks really unnatural, like when you're using things like Google and stuff like that. but this one looks much better, I think. These two, SKELL and Coca.
Yeah, I've never heard of SKELL before, but it does look interesting. I mean, she said you use it for a different. One is better than the other for certain uses, right?
Right.
Yeah. That's the same for really anything that we're using online. There are certain programs, certain LMS systems, that are better than others for certain things. So.
Right.
I think that's everyone now. Yeah, everyone's back.
Yeah, now there's 19. Yeah.
Okay, maybe people ran away from this. Anyway, okay, welcome back everyone. So this was a bit of an attempt for you to, try it out for yourself and see how it works. Most of my students were able to clear this in 15 minutes. So the first one, what's correct experience, culture, or touch culture? If you look at the list, you can see eventually at number 8, it's experience, and touch never comes up in the Collocates. For number 2, when you search learn things or know things, you can see everything for learn is a thing. So lesson is a thing, responsibility is a thing, mathematics are things. Know is associated with people, so no Jack, no Mr. Right is my guess, that's what that was, no Michael. So everything with know is associated with a person. So that should be get to know, like learn about culture, I mean. For number 3, if you look at the chart, this is the chart for a lot, things. Academic is very low, so it's not really used in academics. Am I muted? Oh, question. Right, and then here, you can see that materials is more academic because the bar is quite high. For number 4, cause should be something negative. You can tell it's negative because damage, problem, harm, loss, injury, death, these are never positive things, so it wouldn't really cause any hopeful thing to happen. Clear your mind is correct because the other word about refreshing your mind, which is usually something students do with miscollocations. This usually happens because they imprint on what's it called? Sometimes students try to automatically use the collocations that are in Japanese and then push them onto English, but it doesn't work. And it doesn't work the opposite way, which is why I can never remember, is it shower o hairu, shower o aberu? I always forget. Because in English, it's always just you take a shower. Okay, so just to wrap up, all right, in the chat, whoa, pushing too many buttons. Here's my answers, and I'll put the presentation in there in a sec. Just gonna share one more screen with the conclusion. And then we'll move on to if anyone wants to ask questions or whatever. So Corpora can be used to help students sound more natural. It can help improve grammar. But if you're going to use this type of thing in the class, it takes a long time to get the knack for it. So you have to do it yourself. You have to show them how to use the pictures. And you have to be even more explicit than I said, because I needed to put something about push the plus button to get the collocates up if I didn't put that there. So you have to be super explicit in each step, and you need to take photos, because otherwise it doesn't work, and it does require a certain amount of computer skills. Here are some references. And here's more information about the corpus. There's including stuff about the guided tour, more information about SKEL, etc. Okay, so I'm going to stop my presentation there. So if anyone has any questions or whatever, I'll answer them. Just 1 second.
A question from Rachel in the chat.
Sure. What is that?
Sorry, have you, if you have your chat open, I can read it to you if you don't.
I don't. I'm trying to
Okay,
get my link to share, but it's being really laggy.
Chicia asks, have you seen improvement in your students' writing, less errors of this type, since taking the time to teach them how to use Corpora?
It's the same as anything. If you make any intervention, the good students will change it and the other students won't. So yeah, but for the ones who actually care. I mean, I revise student essays and they don't make any changes and I just take off points. So it depends. Does that answer the question?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else?
Well, I just want to say thank you for your presentation. It's really rare that you see presentations talking about this topic. I learned about it in grad school, but I've never had a chance to actually apply it to my classroom until now. Now I'm teaching academic writing, so I feel like I can. A little bit harder at the high school level, right? Which is the context I was teaching before. So I'm impressed. I'm impressed with your dedication to actually educate students about at least how to use it, right? I think it's really great. And thank you for reminding us about the vocabulary, like scanning for the types of vocabulary. I completely forgot about that feature. I know my students now would very much appreciate a tool like that because they're trying really hard to incorporate more higher vocabulary in their writing now. So.
Yeah, well, now they can see like how many words. I think it was about the 5,000 word level for frequency.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's really useful. It's the same for students. It's about initiative.
Great.
But you could also pre-teach it, which is what I'm trying to do. I've got a project I'm doing with someone else where we're going through the expository essays where they saw these miscollocations, seeing how often they happen, and then maybe working on an intervention for next year.
Do you have any suggestions on how you might, so you teach academic writing and I teach academic writing, so I can see where this can be useful. Do you have any suggestions for our participants who maybe teach in other contexts, who aren't maybe quite at that level, but maybe suggestions on how you can introduce them, maybe just teaching collocates, for example, or so on?
Depending on level, like I think SKEL is a lot more user-friendly for collocates, and for concordance lines, they're a lot cleaner, but it doesn't have as many details. So, but for lower levels, using SKEL and then, what is the word? Cultivate's not the right word, like choosing select concordance lines would be good, and just kind of making it yourself as a worksheet. It would be pretty labor intensive, but it would be much easier than having them search by themselves.
I had a question. Are we still good with time?
Yes.
I don't see like this. This is really interesting for me. I was thinking to make this as like a quick activity. I always give vocabulary to some of my students, and I ask them to sort of spit out like a sentence. But for some of them who can't be bothered to do it, I guess, and this is also a really good way to just feed them sentences. Is there any way that, for example, if you type the word on either of these websites, let's say run, is there a way that you can reduce the number of words that come out, or the sentence is just, I mentioned this to Barry and he said it wasn't possible. So
I don't think it's possible either.
Okay.
I think your best bet, because when you have run, you've got the problem with polysemy. Granted, a lot of us vocabulary people disagree if it exists or not. You'd be much better cultivating a list and creating like your own, like using the concordance lines and then putting it there yourself.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. I'm trying to figure out in terms of Sefer, like these sentences, they run the gamut, don't they?
Yeah, they do, but Skell is more directed at beginners because it's for, you know, language learners. I think Coca, I'd say it gets used more by researchers than students. Like I've tried doing this with more advanced students because I used to teach at a law firm before I moved into university, and yeah, it didn't work. It takes a certain amount of intuition for it. So if people are willing to do this and they want to use it and implement it in a classroom, you got to do the work yourself with photos, etc. Or that's how I feel from previous disasters.
Thank you, Sarah.
Yeah, no problem. Anyone else?
Any other questions?
Well, we got some comments, right, from Julia and Jason. If you guys wanted to say those out loud or just keep them in the chat, I can read them.
I think I'm good for just a chat. I just say I come from a science background, and whenever somebody talks about Corpora or does a demonstration on Corpora, for me it's just amazing, because I used to work in biological sciences, and we do a lot of data analysis on, you know, whatever animal we're looking at. It would just be a lot of numbers and stats, and you'd find patterns in that using statistics. And when I look at similar things start to happen with Corpora, you start to find these patterns and how words work together, and they kind of run together in my mind, that you can use this data to really start to get some good analysis on what's really going on in language. And I think Corpora is just amazing. So that's what I wanted to say.
Yeah, exactly. And then corpus linguistics does link back to natural language processing and machine learning, etc., which is what I'm studying to do eventually. My programming skills sometimes are lacking in what I want. It makes me want to throw my computer out the window quite often, but yeah. Programming's fun, right?
Hey, at least you know how to do it. Right, I'm sure many of us don't. I know I don't.
Yeah, mada this. Far away from being an expert in that one.
Well, thank you so much, Sarah. That was a really great presentation. I hope everyone was able to get some good practice or get a nice taste of using the Corpora. I think at least for younger levels, right, it's a great place for teachers to get examples of collocates, right? Because collocates are super important for vocabulary learning, and you know, you could start teaching collocates as, you know, probably as early as junior high or high school. So really awesome. Thank you so much, Sarah.